From your 24-hour news source, this is Channel 4 News. America at War.
Coalition forces continue pounding Iraqi troops from the ground, penetrating enemy territory, taking thousands of prisoners. And what the president promises will be the final phase of the fight. Good evening. Jerry Helfman is off tonight. Kelly Craig joins me for this expanded edition of the Channel 4 News Nightcast. The ground war is more than 28 hours old now. The U.S. says the casualties are light. Meanwhile, the first pictures of wounded soldiers from the ground attack were released. They're being treated on a hospital ship somewhere in the Persian Gulf. The Pentagon is not releasing the exact numbers of casualties.
Commanders of Desert Storm say the ground offensive moving smoothly into Kuwait. Our comprehensive coverage begins with Channel 4's Steve Handelsman. He's in Saudi Arabia. One sidebar, they are encountering an unexpected side effect. So many Iraqis are reportedly surrendering that their number could bog down the Allied forces. A senior military source in Washington puts the number of enemy POWs in excess of 10,000. So far, no reports of U.S. casualties after a fleet of 300 helicopters flew deep into Iraq. Now let's go to Steve Handelsman, standing by live now in Saudi Arabia. Steve, what can you tell us?
Good morning. The news here remains good. Less resistance than expected from the Iraqi forces, fewer casualties than expected among coalition ground forces. We think many of the coalition forces have gone in and come out without a single casualty. The latest word on American casualties, perhaps as few as 12 hurt or killed. And already Allied ground troops have forged into enemy-held territory.
Hi, Mom. U.S. Marines from the 2nd Division rolled into Kuwait this morning. They traveled through the no man's land between Allied and Iraqi lines in long single-file columns through corridors cleared of Iraqi mines. This U.S. Humvee hit a mine, but the driver wasn't badly hurt. U.S. warplanes and artillery had knocked out Iraqi guns, and many Iraqi positions were deserted. The Marines took hundreds of prisoners. In long lines, the Iraqis marched south in custody.
They're just fed up. They have no supplies, no food, relatively little ammo. The reason they couldn't give up before was because of the mines. Now that we're clearing the mines out, more and more are giving up.
The beginning of the ground war left the Marines upbeat.
Right now, I feel sorry for the people that are remaining on the enemy side because we're going to wipe them out. It's just a matter of time.
This was a day of celebration for Saudi and Egyptian soldiers who had pushed into Kuwait with the Marines. This soldier says the Iraqis were no problem. This soldier wore his protective suit, but he says the Iraqis used no poison gas. They just gave up. That was the story being passed from man to man today in this Egyptian camp. So many of Saddam's soldiers, they said, simply surrendered. Desert Storm Commanding General Norman Schwarzkopf said, in fact, 5,500 Iraqis were taken prisoner in the first 10 hours.
So far, the offensive is progressing with dramatic success. The troops are doing a great job, but I would not be honest with you if I didn't remind you that this is the very early stages.
Ironically, one of General Schwarzkopf's biggest problems now is enemy POWs. What to do with all of them? So far, at this point, we believe there may be more than 12,000 POWs by this morning in Allied hands. And U.S. officials say if those POWs cannot be transported by helicopter, they may have to march en masse south to Saudi Arabia. This is Steve Handelsman reporting live from northeastern Saudi Arabia. Back to you.
Well, Steve, here in Washington, the lights on the White House winked out just half an hour ago. And as this Washington Sunday winds down, President Bush, after a detailed 45-minute briefing, is said to be gratified by early news of success in the land war. No more decisions from him needed today, we're told. The plan he approved some time ago now being implemented. But casualties will rise, so there is some restraint here about the good news of success so far. To the White House this evening, Joint Chiefs Chairman Colin Powell to brief national leaders, including the president, on the ground offensive. Powell also described the Iraqi response. Later, spokesman Marlon Fitzwater said the officials were, quote, a little surprised that it wasn't as strong as some had predicted. Today had found Iraqis listening to military communiques claiming Allied assaults had been crushed, even as Defense Secretary Cheney here noted Iraqi forces were faring poorly.
That they have been cut off from their supplies, that they are badly demoralized, and that they'd rather quit than fight, and that's obviously a great advantage for us.
While Cheney, cheered on by a moving van crew, warned against overconfidence on the Allied side, Saddam Hussein seemed to exude overconfidence on Iraqi radio, saying of his enemies, whatever they want to do, they will be prevented from by God Almighty. An Arab neighbor, now adversary, Egypt's President Mubarak, said of Saddam,
I have said this very clearly. I cannot work with him. I never trust this man.
But pro-Saddam and anti-U.S. feelings remain strong in Jordan, where churchgoers were asked to pray for peace. God's help was sought by George Bush and most of his cabinet this morning at St. John's Episcopal in Washington. A small group of peace demonstrators with drums allegedly broke noise laws. 4 arrested. Peace rallies here tonight, some attracting flag-waving counter-demonstrators who support the Allied war. No word of any more movement to end it early through diplomacy. I'm Jim Upshaw reporting live from the White House. Back to you.
All right, Jim, thanks very much. Jose?
Air raid sirens sounding twice in Israel tonight. 2 Scud attacks launched on the Jewish state in as many hours. The damage not reported in either attack. The ground war is good news for Israelis who want Allied forces to finish off Saddam and remove the threat to their country. The Israeli army reports a border shootout between a Jordanian guerrilla and an Israeli soldier. One Israeli expert says violence like that one
Internal and external pressures on Jordan are dragging it into an increasingly hostile position towards the coalition and towards Israel, and may in time make it extremely difficult to keep Jordan out of this war.
In Jordan, anti-American protesters made their opposition to the war known, staging demonstrations outside the U.S. Embassy in Amman. Israelis aren't the only ones celebrating news of the beginning of the ground war. Here in South Florida, Kuwaiti Americans are more hopeful than ever. They're hopeful about the return to their homeland. And Channel 4's Ileana Bravo has one family story.
Scenes that show U.S. superiority in an all-out war against Iraq, of Iraqi troops giving in to the tremendous Allied firepower. They're scenes of relief for Kuwaitis worldwide who see the freedom of their homeland closer at hand.
We have to be extremely optimistic at this point to at least relieve us from the sadness that we've been living for that past 7 months.
The Al-Naki family remembers the fear of escaping their native Kuwait in a harrowing desert crossing right after the invasion. They left behind a very good life in their land, losing even their lavish home to Iraqi looters. A University of Miami professor of engineering, Dr. Al-Naki, and fellow Kuwaitis have lobbied for the freedom of their country since, but they still worry about the safety of relatives back home.
I really cried when I first heard the news because I thought of the families back home. How are they feeling more than us?
We don't know. We don't know the news. We hope everything fine.
They're united in their gratitude for this nation, even starting a local blood drive for the troops.
The least, and I repeat, the least we can do for them here, give them our blood.
And like Americans who wait for their soldiers to return to the land of the free, Kuwaitis wait for the day they can go back to a free Kuwait.
Free Kuwait.
In Kendall, Ileana Bravo, Channel 4 News.
Soldiers' loved ones at Operation Homefront on a roller coaster of emotions tonight. They huddled close together at the Cutler Ridge office, awaiting the latest word on the ground surge. Many told us they're relieved the final phase of the war has finally begun, but at the same time, they're very concerned that this could also be the bloodiest phase. It is much the same scene at Operation Homefront headquarters in Lauderdale Lakes. Channel 4's Steve Abrams has that story.
As soon as the ground war began, the phones at Operation Homefront were ringing off the hook. This group was started in the first place to offer support to people who had friends or relatives in the Gulf. And that support will be especially important in the days to come.
We're doing good. Everybody knows that this is the place to come. And we get here and we share together and laugh and cry. And
what's different now, though, is that with the ground war well underway, chances are better than ever that someone in this group is going to lose a loved one.
With the number of people that are in our group, it seems likely that it will affect us eventually. And I'm sure we're all praying that it's not going to be us personally. but we'll be there for whoever it is.
In the meantime, they gather here, watching the latest news reports on television and offering each other comfort.
I'm scared, nervous. I broke down last night, but I'm all right right now.
I feel scared for him, wondering if he's okay. It's hard, real hard.
I just pray, we keep praying that he'll come home safe, and I miss him. It's scary, you know, thinking that something might happen to him, but we keep praying that he'll come home to us.
In Lauderdale Lakes, Steve Abrams, Channel 4 News.
Homefront support is not just coming from South Florida's military families. Church congregations are offering their prayers while others are offering their hearts. We have two reports tonight, beginning with Channel 4's Katrina Daniel.
The president asked Americans to pause for a moment today to pray for our soldiers fighting the war in the Gulf. Thousands in South Florida heeded that call.
Myself, I pray for all of them and ask God to give the president the wisdom, the knowledge, and the strength to make the right decision.
I just like to get it over quick. I'm a Korean veteran. I know what the folks are going through over there. And the sooner we get it done, the less lives that will be lost. That's what we need. I got to get them back here.
Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Miami. So many church members here have loved ones in the Mideast. Pastor Samuel Atchison held a special prayer vigil.
This is one of the most serious wars that we've ever had. And never before have our children watched it on TV. Never before. This will be in our history, in our geography.
Yvonne Grant's daughter is a sergeant in the Army, serving in the Gulf.
I would be praying for peace. I want the war over now. And I want my daughter, as well as other daughters and sons, to come back home safely.
Further south at Naranja Baptist Church, families of many soldiers come for comfort.
I think it's terrible myself, but I think the Lord will bring our boys home and safe and sound, because I think we're going to win it.
No matter what their religious beliefs. All those we talked with today shared the same prayer.
I'm doing all the praying I can, and I wish this war gets over as fast as possible.
Katrina Daniel, Channel 4 News.
The man in whose yard this towering tree sits doesn't have a loved one in the Middle East, and neither he nor his neighbors on Oakmont Street think that matters. They dressed up their street and threw a party for people they don't know in a city park.
As far as we're concerned, every serviceman over there is part of our family. We want to help.
So kids have Saddam Hussein in their sights, even though the ammunition is orange paint. They're wearing their true colors and swinging beneath yellow ribbons. Adults are rolling up their sleeves and pitching in. The merchants have trimmed their profits by giving a cut to the cause.
It looks like the 4th of July, but appearances deceive. Nobody is celebrating anything here this afternoon. In fact, what this rally is doing is helping families with loved ones in the Middle East get through what would have been a really tough afternoon.
Families like Crystal Muller and her son Henry, named for his Air Force dad.
Sitting at home is not going to help them, and it's not going to help us any. We got to get out here. We got to show them we care. We got to show them we have support for them, and we got to show each other that we're here for each other because, I mean, I haven't slept all night.
Outside the federal courthouse, this group worries about U.S. troops as well. They support the men and women of Operation Desert Storm, but not American policy.
We're proud to show that we're peaceful people. We're proud to show that we believe there's an alternative to this war.
The protesters' numbers pale in comparison to the crowd drawn to the pro-troops rally, which also featured Jose Canseco. But here's the autograph signing that's most telling about the American mood. Kids asking the men of the 841st Combat Engineers Unit for their signature.
I'll tell you, really, there's no words to describe it. I mean, we feel great. We feel great.
There you go. In North Lauderdale, Sue Corbett, Channel 4 News.
Still ahead on the Channel 4 News Nightcast, a look at the powerful weapons in the ground war.
But first, a look at what Ned Smith has in store for some sports.
All right, coming up on Sports Final, Hank Oberg joins me to take a look at how the Miami Heat did tonight against the visiting New York Knicks. We'll open up the phones again, and Joe Robbie Stadium opens its doors tomorrow for a look-see by the Major League Expansion Committee. We'll tell you all about it coming up later on Channel 4 Sports Final, right after the Nightcast.
At your South Florida Ford dealers, the rate is right.
1.9% financing or $1,000 cash back on new 91 Ford Rangers. Loaded with over $2,000 in options, so you could save over $3,000. The right rate, 1.9%. The right truck, the 91 Ford Ranger. The right place, your South Florida Ford dealers, right now.
You're watching some wonderful reasons to get out of bed every morning. They're all being brought to you by Williams Island, a private residential paradise on the Intracoastal Waterway at 183rd Street, between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. If you're living elsewhere, consider this your wake-up call.
Dad used to get paid on Thursdays, and every Thursday night I'd sneak downstairs and watch the jar ceremony. So much for groceries, so much for rent. But the first jar they always put money into was the jar marked savings. Dad always said, take care of your money will take care of you. I never forgot that.
We've given over 1 million people a better way to save for the future. Glendale Federal Bank, the way a bank should work.
Tonight's Channel 4 weather is sponsored in part by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world.
From your 24-hour news source, Channel 4 News continues.
Of course, the thoughts and prayers of most Americans right now are with the men and women taking part in Operation Desert Storm. But there is another aspect to this war, a political one. And for that interpretation, we go live to our newsroom where we are joined by International Relations Professor Bradford McGuinn. Professor, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Sure. The first question is, do you think that many observers are surprised?
Backed by a first-class military machine. The U.S. and its allies have 3,500 tanks in the Gulf. The rolling fortress is led by the M1A1 Abrams. U.S.-made, it's considered the best in the world. Its capability to destroy an enemy tank is unrivaled, as is its ability to survive a direct hit. Equipped with a laser-guided electronic targeting system, its German-made 120mm gun has a range of 1¼ miles. The main battle tanks are the M60s. Like the M1A1s, they feature chemical, biological, and nuclear protection for the 4-man crew. They're equipped with a 105mm main gun and 2 other types of machine guns. This towed field artillery is the M198 howitzer. It's a gun of great range, over 24,000 yards, and can fire 4 rounds per minute for 3 minutes. A key part of any ground attack is this, the Army AH-64A Apache attack helicopter. Like the Air Force A-10 Warthog, it is a tank killer. Its crew of 2 can launch Hellfire missiles without even seeing the target. That's thanks to laser technology that steers missiles towards targets and destroys enemy tanks. And what kind of tanks does Iraq have? Most are older Soviet designs used in the Iran-Iraq conflict. But Iraq is also equipped with more sophisticated Soviet T-72s operated by the elite Republican Guard. Even so, military experts predict an operation lasting as few as 10 days because of our high-tech weaponry.
But those weapons are not the only things driving Desert Storm. The troops' morale is kept high by support from here at home, but also from Armed Forces Radio Network. Its desert DJs not only play the latest hits, they act as cheerleaders and friends. Channel 4's Arch Campbell says it's a role they learned from another wartime rocker, made famous in a movie many of you saw right here on NBC.
A Vietnam tradition is celebrated tonight on network television.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Good Morning Vietnam is based on the year Adrian Cronauer spent in Armed Forces Radio in Saigon. That was 25 years ago today. Cronauer is a communications lawyer in Washington.
In Vietnam, the same as any place else, people had to lead their lives. It wasn't all fighting.
So Armed Forces Radio aimed to sound like stateside stations. Cronauer was the best of the breed.
It was 60s-style radio.
The Middle East war gives new meaning to Cronauer's story. Now Armed Forces Radio offers Good Morning Saudi Arabia. The aim is the same as it was in Vietnam, to entertain combat troops. The originator of Good Morning Vietnam has a few tips for the men following in his footsteps in the Middle East.
The same things that a good disc jockey in the morning would do at home, they should be doing there.
And here's an example.
Good morning, Vietnam.
I'm Arch Campbell for NBC News.
And Adrian Cronauer says he's considering an offer to revive his wacky radio show for the soldiers in Saudi Arabia.
He's still got the pipes.
Yes, he does.
Still ahead on the Channel 4 News Nightcast, Brian Allen's top of the week forecast.
But first, tonight's winning Cash 3 lottery numbers: 8, 4, and 2.
Driving a Hyundai Excel has never felt better. Maybe that's because after selling their first million cars twice as fast as Honda or Toyota, over 96% of all Hyundais are still on the road. But then with all the extras you can get, you feel good even when you're not on the road. Hyundai. Yes, Hyundai.
Our volunteer of the year is Doris Craig.
It's terrific how Depend changes people's lives. And there's a terrific change in Depend elastic leg undergarments. It's called Absorb.
Jack? From your 24-hour news source, Channel 4 News continues.
Taking a look now at other stories topping the Channel 4 News at this hour, a skydiver falls to his death in Orlando today during an attempt to link up a world record 160 skydivers in a single jump. A raging office building fire kills 3 Philadelphia firefighters. The 12 alarm blaze burned for more than 18 hours before being brought under control. And South Florida laces up its walking shoes for a deadly disease. The Health Crisis Network walkathon today on Miami Beach.
And it was a beautiful day to be out and about in Miami Beach or wherever you were today in South Florida. Let's take a look at how the week is going to be shaping up. We go over to Brian Allen. Brian.
It was actually just a little bit too humid today. We're starting to see some southeast winds, so that means some humidity on the way back in. First stop, though, tonight, before we start to talk about South Florida, is the Middle East. Right there, you see Kuwait. Still some overcast skies this morning, but we're still watching this patch of clouds here into the western portions. They will be moving in about the southern half of Iraq and on into Kuwait in the next 6 to 8 hours. These are high clouds. Infrared satellite picks up the brightest and highest tops, so the visibility is still not really too bad at all. Back here closer to home, let's go outside the Channel 4 weather station. Currently 75 degrees. The feels like temperature 75. Humidity currently 80%. Winds out of the southwest at 6, and no rain in the rain gauge today. Other temperatures around the region: 11 o'clock, Miami 72, the beach 74, Fort Lauderdale 73, Kendall 71, Key West 75 degrees. On the records for today, now we set that record high of 89 degrees yesterday. Our high today only 84, but still above normal at 77. The low 67, we should be at 61. Here we go across the country right now. First stop, the Big Sat, and we'll show you what's been going on. Clearing skies now as you move up into around, well, Minnesota, Wisconsin, back into the Dakotas. They saw between 6 to 9 inches of snow yesterday. Now a lot of sunshine, but it's still really cold up there. Temperatures barely getting into the teens. On the meanwhile, though, we were into the 80s, but another system brewing on the way through. As you can see, through the southeast, back into the Ohio Valley, everybody socked in with a lot of clouds. As we look at the maps and show you what's going on, everything is stacking up right along this frontal system. Area of high pressure will push off. This cold front we're looking at, say goodbye to it. It's out of here. More warm air tonight and once again tomorrow. But there's the cold air, and by tomorrow, where does it end up? Well, it starts to move into the lower Great Lakes, now dragging with it all of those teens. Some more snow developing through Missouri, northern portions of Arkansas. It looks like it's going to start to be another heavy rain event through Louisiana, back into Mississippi, and probably Alabama and also for Texas. But for us tomorrow, once again, warm. For the boaters tomorrow, winds out of the west at 5 to 10 knots. Great day. Seas 2 feet or less. The bay is a light shop. Surf temperature tomorrow, 75 degrees. For tonight, we go like this. A low of 66, partly cloudy skies, maybe 1 or 2 showers, and possibly some early morning fog. And for tomorrow, lots of sun, warm again, 84 degrees once again. And your 4 more days, Tuesday, 83. Wednesday, the next front on the way, a couple of showers, 81. Thursday, cooling down only to 79. Friday, rebounds, lots of sunshine, 81 degrees. Jose?
Great. Thank you, Brian. Briefly recapping the latest developments in the war in the Gulf. Military officials report 3 Marines have died in the first day of the Persian Gulf ground war. At least 10,000 Iraqi prisoners of war have reportedly been taken, and the all-clear siren has sounded throughout Israel tonight after Iraq launched its 37th and 38th Scud attacks. No damage was reported.
And before we go tonight, Homefront support showing up virtually everywhere these days, even underwater. The freighter Mercedes, dumped in the backyard of a posh Palm Beach mansion by a storm a few years back, today decorated in the patriotic colors of the American flag and yellow ribbons. The freighter, now an artificial reef, is in 97 feet of water off the Fort Lauderdale coast. That's it for us. We thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Channel 4, your 24-hour news source for the latest on the Gulf War.
Ned Smith and Hank Goldberger up next with Sunday Sports Final. Have a great week. Take care.